Did you always want to fly an A380X in Flight Simulator 2020? Then I've got some good news because FlyByWire just released their alpha release. In this video, we're going to look at how you can install it, but also have a quick overview of the aircraft and the details and some configuration of the electronic flight pack. Let's roll the intro and then let's jump to the details. Probably the longest project I've even worked on, the A380X. I'm talking about the friends from FlyByWire. FlyByWire, known for the A380X, which is a magnificent aircraft. Best of all, it's open source. And now they have the A380X, which is currently in alpha release. In this video, we're going to have a look at the new aircraft, how to get it, and then of course also a review of how it looks like in Flight Simulator. So the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have the installer from FlyByWire installed. And to do that, you go to flybywiresim.com. I will post a link in the description of this video. And then you can either press the download link here, or you can press the download link here, because it will take you to the same download page, which is this one. As you can see, user installer to download, right? So you can't download it directly from here. You need to have that installer downloaded. So I already installed the downloader. Because I'm already using it for a while. But likely I need to install an update for that. And that's where you can see here, right? So if you already are using the A380X and are using the installer from FlyByWire, you first need to update it. And the updating goes really fast, right? It says, okay, hey, confirmation. And then you press install. You can also ignore the option. And also, I'd say I'm now updating the A380X, as I'm clicking. But I also need to restart to update, right? So let's wait, and then this one is done. Then click restart to update. It will install the FlyByWire installer setup, and then you will be able to, say, also install the A380X. So currently there are two versions. It's the 4K and the 8K version. Of course, it depends on, let's say, your machine power, which one you want to install. I'm going to go for the 8K. But here you can see that there are some descriptions here, right? So it includes the 8K full resolution cabin, cockpit and exterior textures, full fidelity experience and all recommendations if your system is powerful enough to support it, realistic and in high detail. They do recommend DirectX number 11 installed, and high or lower texture resolution settings are recommended. If you click on the 4K version, you will see that they are supporting the same thing. However, it's 4K downscaled cabin, cockpit and exterior textures. Choose this option to reduce the stutters, better performance with higher or lower texture resolution, right? Additionally, if you intend to use the following, use frame generation, use VR, use DirectX 12 beta, or are otherwise limited by your graphics card VRAM amount. Here you can see the system requirements, right? So system requirements are over here. So the system requirements, the minimum system requirements are here, 180p. On 30 frames, low, then you need to have these specs, right? So 8 GB of memory and 6 up to 8 GB of video RAM. Then the recommended is the 1440p on 30 frames per second high. Then you will need to have these specs, right? So you can see that the memory for the video card is increasing, as well as the size of the memory is increasing. Strange thing is that you need to have less space. That's, let's say, kind of weird. I do think that is either this is a typo or this one. I'm not sure about it because there's a star behind it. And then we've got the maximum one, right, which is the DLSS 60 high ultra. Then you will need to have these specs, right? So 7800X 3D, the 4080p, the 4080 16 GB, or the 7900 XTX from NVIDIA, from AMD, 24 GB, 32 gigs of RAM, and also 28 gig of disk space. So no matter which one you want to select, make sure that you install the correct one. I'm going to install this one, not because my system isn't powerful enough, but I'm using that DirectX 12 beta, right? Some people might say you're crazy, but hey, I'm using it. You can see that the download size is a 4.7 GB based on this, so that will take a while. So we can do two things. I can continue talking, but of course I can also go to the release notes while we're talking, right? So you can see that the stable version information is shown over here. The release notes are really pointing to the installer version, which you need to keep in mind. For the A380X, you need to keep in mind that it's currently an alpha release, which means that there might be some issues in it. So don't expect that it works 100% flawlessly, because there might be some issues with it. So let's see if we can find some documentation about it, right? Maybe there's some documentation about it. Here it is, the A380X. An overview, right? The following configuration simulated. The model A380-842 with the Rolls-Royce engine Trent 972B84. The APU is the Pratt & Whitney PW8980. WV is the 003. And the rest of the systems are the Honeywell AESS. So that's the airport or the aircraft that you get. If you go to the features guide, you will see that the feature guide will normally display a long list of items. However, they say it's not a complete list of all the functionalities, but it's an initial list of the features on release. And then they continue to do that. So first of all, we got the flight planning, where you see some information about the flight planning. Also how to load flights, right? You can either do it manually or using SimBrief, where SimBrief is recommended. But you can also create a lot of flight plan from the Microsoft Flight Simulator world map, right? That's if you don't own the SimBrief or the Navigraph subscription, then you might want to go for the MSOS world map. Although it's not 100% required, right, to use Navigraph subscription. So this is what you can see right here. We see some say description of how to do it, but keep an eye on my channel because I will likely post some specific videos about that. Then we've got the view and wait. You can see some information about this, right? It gives you some more information. If you click on these buttons where you can see operating empty weight, zero fuel weight, just some explanation for you, or if you're not familiar with these terms, they're explaining it in very, let's say, small text, but very detailed and understandable for likely everybody. Here you can see the fuel tanks, right? The passengers, the cargo, changing the default weights, also using SimBrief is also being described. So if you're using that, you would be good to go. Now the good thing is that they also have the SimBrief and Navigraph integration. So here they describe how to set up SimBrief, how to use it, but they also give you an option to download this SimBrief airframe, which you can then use in SimBrief to plan your flights, which makes it easier to use it. That's really cool. But they also allow you to set up the A380X SimBrief integration, right? And here they describe how to do it. So you go to the flypad, the electronic flypad, and then you can enable adoption, provide the information. But I will go to it in a few moments, or well, likely in a separate video for this one. So in the meantime, where do we live? Right? It's unpacking, it's decompressing, which is cool. Then of course I need to start Flight Simulator. Since that will take some time, everybody knows it, I will pause the recording for now and then I will continue the recording once Flight Simulator has started. So Flight Simulator has started and let's go to the world map, right? Because we want to see the beauty. So we go to the aircraft selection and then of course search for the Airbus, which is here, right? And then I need to scroll to the top and I would have expected it here. I don't see it. So that's kind of weird. So maybe I did something wrong. So let's remove it, right? And then see if we can find it manually. Here are the ATRs. Then we've got the Airbus. Maybe it's on the fly-by-wire. Could be. Although I would expect that not to be the case, but maybe that's... here we have it, right? So the fly-by-wire one. It's the A380X, right? So what is included? There are two liveries. The first one is the fly-by-wire simulation sprite, and the other one is the house livery of fly-by-wire, right? So you can either select one of them. So you can see the cruise speed is there, the maximum altitude, endurance, and the range. And if we go to the weight and balance, then we of course see a lot of nice stuff, because we can see multiple, I would say, tanks, right? The left outer, feed one, left mid, left inner, etc. And those can be controlled individually by, I would say, moving those levelers. Or you can increase the total, right, by moving this one over, just like with other airplanes. Then we've got the payload. And the payload in this case is 140%, which looks a little bit weird to me. So we'll move it back. And here you can see the different decks, as well as the cargo holds, the bulk cargo, as well as the captain and the first officer, which are there, right? And based on that, you can, I would say, change the center of gravity. You can make some other changes. For example, you can add some more people in the, say, mid decks, or you can change the view depending on which tank you want to use. Then you've got the failures, and the failures are by default off, but of course, if you want to make it yourself a little bit more difficult, then you can switch on those failures. And you can see the most failures, which are with other aircrafts, are also here, right? The fire, the ignition, the oil leak, oil system, complete failures. And that likely has to do with the engines, right? The weird thing is that it would say there are not other failures, but that kind or could be, I would say, due to the fact that it's, I would say, default and still in development, right? Because that's something which I want to call out. It still is in development. So once you selected the aircraft, you can, of course, select the airport. So for the A380X, right, we're going to select the John F. Kennedy Airport. And keep in mind that the aircraft might not be able to land on certain airports. So let's see, because it's a huge aircraft, as we all know. So likely we will have a challenge finding a good parking spot here. So maybe we should say, okay, where can we use it, right? These, I would say, look a little bit too small to me. Let's see if we can find a bigger one. Let's select this one. Let's select it and set it as departure gate. Now we'll press fly. Again, here a warning. First time, it could take some time before it has, I would say, rendered all the stuff. If that's the case, don't worry, it will eventually spin up. It could take sometimes between 5 and 10 minutes. That's depending on the configuration which you have. The more powerful your system is, the faster it will be. If I do it on my, I would say, old gaming machine, it would take, say, pretty much 10 minutes in some cases. With my new gaming PC, it works a lot faster. As you can see that it already made the first jump. And likely it will make some more jumps in the coming minutes. While we're talking, right, you can see that on the bottom of the screen, you can see some information about the aircraft, right? So FlyByWire is named after the fly-by-wire controls first introduced in the Airbus A320. It will give you some information about the A380, right? The range in nautical miles, but also in kilometers. Enough to fly from Dubai to Los Angeles. So that's probably some of the flights which you might want to try with this one. And also it's being developed again by the by open source, right? It's developed by, I would say, volunteers. And that team is really big, right? And they spend a lot of time on making this aircraft, which is really cool. So they started with the, in October 2020, right? With the first one. And here we can see the airport, of course. So let's see where the aircraft is. You can see, although I've got, I would say, really high spec machine, there was some stuttering in between. But hey, don't worry, right? Let's have a look at this beautiful aircraft. So we will start within the aircraft. You can see it's wobbling. That's cool. So let's go to the outside and then, let's say, decreasing the speeds a bit, because else we will go far too fast. So let's have a look at the outside. So here we can see the aircraft, right? First thing is it's massive, right? The other thing is that it has 4 engines, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side. And that's why I was looking at the failures, because it looks like that you can't simulate failures on all the engines. But again, that might be due to the preview functionality. If you look at the level of detail which they have, let's say, added to the aircraft, right? Let's say the time they spent on doing all the graphical stuff, it's really amazing, right? Because if you look at this, right, you can see here, for example, you can see the sun flare on it, which is really cool, but you can also see that the shadow, etc., works really nicely. Then this is the Spirit of Toulouse, right, which is one of the aircrafts. I'm not sure which airliner it normally is, but maybe it refers to something. If you know it, then let me know via the comment box below this video. You can see that I would say pointer there, right? But you can also see that, let's say, Flight Simulator still has some issues, right? Because the car or the truck is in the middle of the engine. So hopefully it will go fast, go away pretty fast, because else we might have some issues. Then if we look at the bottom of the aircraft, and this is what I really like, right? You can see the usage on it, right? You can see that it's really being used. But if we're going further down to the wheels, you can also see that they spend some really serious time again on modeling this whole part, including the springs which are there. All kind of cool stuff, right? We can go to it. Also the tail strike is here, right? Which you can see. And if we go to the back, we can also see that they hit the ground a few times. But hey, who does not, right? Then if we look at the number of doors, right? Doors are over here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doors on this end. And then we've got 2 doors on at the start, or 3 doors, because this one is hidden, right? The white one. And here you can see the same thing on the outside, right? You can see usage on the livery of the aircraft. But the cool thing is that you can also look inside, right? You can look through the windows and then see other stuff. So let's do that. So let's go inside the aircraft. And this is what really amazed me, right? Because they also modeled the inside. And this is always changing, right? So they also modeled the inside, right? So this is sort of a business class, right? So if you never flew business class, you can now do in Flight Simulator. You can see a lot of cool things over there. And if we go to this, you can even see that they modeled the stairs. And then we can go downstairs inside the cockpit also likely. But first have a look at the other passengers, which are over there. And here you can also see that they nicely modeled it. Then we go to the economy class. So really, really cool. Also with screens, as you can see. So let's now go to the cockpit, right? Which is stairs up, right? Oh, not too high. And there we go. So this is the cockpit. And let me reduce the speed again a little bit further because else it goes so fast. But I still need to connect my Xbox controller for this part because that's much easier. So let's switch to a different view. So this is the cockpit, right? You can see again, a lot of detail has been added, including everything on the top, including some usage on the buttons, which I really like. On the left side, you can find the electronic flight bag, right? So the EFB, you can see the, nice systems over here, right? I'm not sure if you see that they, I would say, added the help systems, right? To figure out, okay, hey, what is it? And that's pretty nice, right? So also screens are there, right? Which you can likely click on, but it's something which we'll figure out in a future video. But this looks really cool. Now, if you want to do a quick start, right, you can go to the electronic flight bag, which is over here, and then simply press it, and then it will switch it on. And this allows you to import either the SimBrief data, right, if you're having SimBrief integration configured, or you can do other stuff. For example, you can look at, okay, some presets, right? So you can do some presets, right? The aircraft must be powered for interior lighting presets, because then you can, say, kind of change the lighting inside the aircraft. How cool is that? But the other thing might be even cooler because you can also switch to the aircraft states. So you can go to cold and dark, you can go to powered, ready for pushback, ready for taxi, and ready for takeoff. Right here you can see that they also added a button for fast loading, which means that loading the passengers in the aircraft can be fast, but then will be unrealistic, or you can make it realistic, but then you need to save some time. So let's move it to powered in this case. It will ask for confirmation, and then it will say, okay, hey, these are the steps which it takes, which is also pretty cool because here you can see which steps it's going to perform, I would say, while switching on the aircraft. Other options which you can do. Well, for example, you can remove the gear pins and covers. You can put a check mark here for the view, right? So you can put everything, some kind of, I would say, small checklist built in. The same thing as for the start and the after start. So that's really nice that they integrated this part, right? The checklist inside that electronic flight bag. Then we've got the failures, because there are more failures. And that's what I wanted to learn you, right? You can simply, let's say, also make these failures applicable, right? Fire protection, electronic power, and full simulations of the failures below isn't yet guaranteed because it's work in progress. Then we've got the ATC. So it only is being used if you're using iVal or VetSim, right? Those are the online flight sim ATCs which you can use. If you want to use it, you need to configure it in the settings page, which I will show in a few seconds. You have the third-party add-on, which is for Navigraph. You've got the performance calculations, which you can do, but also you can change, for example, opening the doors, asking for a bridge, asking for a fuel truck, asking for power, asking for a catering, and that's only for services because there are more options, right? You can change the fuel also from inside the aircraft. So if you didn't do it on a world map, you can do it here. You can change the payload if you want, the main and the upper deck, right? Where you can do that. And here again, you can see that you can change the boarding time, real, fast, or instant. And you can do the pushback. So the pushback is integrated here. So if you don't have, for example, GSX, you can use this one also to push back the aircraft, which is pretty nice. Last one is, of course, the sim brief data, which you can import the online flight plan, of the operational flight plan, the OFP, which can be imported from here. Now that's that, right? If we go to the settings, which we didn't discuss yet, you can also see that you can change some other things. For example, you can align the ADERs, right, instantly, or using the, say, real method. You can change the boarding, so you can finish the boarding. You can connect it to SimBridge, and you can switch on the onboard keyboard or on-screen keyboard, which makes it possible to push on the keys. Pause on at top of descent inactive, and then sim rate can be changed here. But you can also change the say brightness of the display, right? Which in this case I like to have a little bit more bright, which is there. Then from there on, you can also go to the options, which kind of, let's say, special option. So you can do it like this, and there you can switch on the or change the languages, but also change again the on-screen, change the brightness, the battery life simulated, the status bar, flight progress bar indicator, as well as the show colored roll meter, right, which you can switch on or off. The theme can be changed, blue, dark, or light. That's specifically for the electronic flight bag. And those are the options which you can do from here, right? So pretty nice. Are there more options? Yes, there are. You can, for example, also pin programs. For example, you can change the weight unit. You can change the ISIS baro unit, the metric altitude, and several other stuff. In addition to that, you can change the sim options, right, which are there. You can say SimBridge is running on a different machine. You can control the throttles if you're having a joystick which has throttles. And you can also control where the pilot is seating. This one is something which you need to keep in mind because it syncs the master flight plan. It loads it only and does not save it. I'm not sure what the difference is, but we will figure out in a future video. Realism. This has to do all with the time it takes to load the aircraft, say align the navigation systems, but also do some other things, right? You can simply autofill the checklist, but you can also separate tiller from rudder inputs. And here they mention, okay, if it's realistic or unrealistic, which allows you to make it either more realistic or more unrealistic, depending on what you want. For the third-party options, we already discussed it. Here you can this, or for example, configure your SimBrief user ID. You can automatically import that SimBrief data, but also you can use GSX for fuel synchronization and payload synchronization, which makes it possible to use the GSX, which is a paid add-on. So keep that in mind. Then the ATSU and AOC, those can be also changed, right? This specifically, say for flight simulator in this case, but if you want to use iVAO or VetSim, then you can also change it over here. You can enable error reporting, TLAX, Hobby is a separate utility. I think that one is open source. Not 100% sure about that, but then you can define it here. So this is really for the third-party add-ons, which you can configure either using the third-party options or using the ATSU. Then we've got the audio option, and here you can change the volume of the exterior, the engine interior, and the wind interior, and they can be controlled all separately using these buttons over here. And then the flight path, which we already discussed, contains these options. So a lot of options which can be configured, and you can either, let's say, exit via this button and then move to this one, right, which will bring you here. But there's also another option, and it's of course pressing the option over here, which will bring you to that page. Now, in the meantime, the aircraft has started, so you can see all the things are modeled nicely. So you can see the maps or the systems, right? You can see the compass, but also the virtual horizon. You can see that you can click on these screens. I'm not sure if that really works. I still need to try it out, but that's possible. You can see the engine information and a lot of other cool things. And of course, you can hover over things where you can see the information about what the control really is. Now in the center, there are multiple options, right? Here's the FMS1 and the FMS2 flight management systems. And in the center, there's the option to show the door, for example. But likely you can change that view using one of the other options, which we will likely find out in a future video. Here we can go to the message list, right? If there are any messages. But also you can, let's say, modify some things, right? You can change options here. You can go to the view flight plan. You can go to the perf settings. And this is really, really cool, right? It really makes it so cool. You can go to the init screen if you want. You can go to the aircraft. You can request the flight plan. And you can do several other things. So it's really, let's say, it's really, really amazing what they did, right? But those are things which we'll discuss in a future video. So keep an eye on my channel. And here we've got the rest of the systems, right? The throttles, of course, the radio controls. Here we've got the speed brakes, the flaps are over here, and some other systems. Again, it looks so cool, this one. I really would say want to try it out. So likely I will end the video by now. First gonna try some things. And then after I say figured out several things, then I will post a new video about what I discovered during my first few hours with the A380X from FlyByWire.